Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to be looking at a new post-apocalyptic role-playing game. And up front, I was given this as a review copy, but it's free to the public, so it's not like it was special treatment. The author was not only nice enough to send me this, but also sent me the update, which was a nice touch. It was authored by Jordan Fannin. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. And it is known as APOCALYPTIA, which is probably what you've already figured out from the name of this title, the title of the video. So I'm going to give you a blurb from the introduction, and then I'll get into the mechanics of the game a little bit. Apocalyptica is the end of the world as we know it. This game offers 12 different varieties of apocalyptic scenarios to play. They have your story set during an alien invasion or a robot rebellion, a classic rise of the living dead, or the modern zombie viral outbreak are also possible. For a more realistic one, the end may be caused by a global pandemic, flu, climate collapse, or thermonuclear war. Always very popular. The person running the game is known as a game narrator, and gives you a brief blurb about what is a role-playing game, and the game is presented both as the ability to have this run as a one-shot or as a campaign with linked adventures. Apocalyptica is intended to be a gritty, realistic, lethal game about trying to find hope in a violent, broken world. If you find that it is too grim, feel free to make changes whenever you like. The only use for rules is to facilitate the fun, which I think is a good attitude. And it's there's even a nice little chart in here which is about when the events that triggers the game take place, anywhere from days to decades, and what percentage of the population, how many populations have died in the initial event. Say it could be very low, hundreds, or it could be billions. So you can either roll it randomly or figure out for yourself. Some people like a real random type of a game, and random charts are one of the strong suits in this game. I gotta tell you, folks, even if you don't use the game itself, I think that this game offers a lot of content just for the charts. The charts for the encounters and the gear, all of that stuff would be usable in any post-apocalyptic setting, particularly if it's going to be one of the ones that takes place in the near time frame after the event happens, whatever the event happens to be. So here we're going to go. I'm going to give you a basic rundown of what we have here. We have your traits, which is, this is a D6 based system, and the traits are agility, brains, constitution, and demeanor. Nicely done, A, B, C, D. And he reached for D, demeanor, which is socializing and luck, but a good choice. I smiled when I saw that. Well done. And it uses D6s, which is great. They are ubiquitous. Everybody's got a game of Yahtzee in their house, or some D6s from something else. So this game has all the dice you're going to need probably in your home already, or a dollar store gets you a set for your entire group. It uses a target number. So you have a very simple target would be a 3, a very high target would be a 12. You have the roll, plus you add in traits and skills and things like that, equipment bonuses, circumstance bonuses, and if you beat your target, you're golden. It's an exploding D6 system, which I happen to like. You roll a 6, you get to roll again and add it. Keep rolling 6s, you can get some really high target numbers. You also have the botch feature, where if you roll a 1, that's a failure regardless of how many bonuses you have. You could have the best sniper rifle in the world, and if you roll a 1, you still miss. There's a twig in your way, and yes, a twig can actually deflect a missile. I had an uncle that lost a deer that way once. And if you roll a 1 again, bad things happen. If it's just a failure, you've really gone into the woods on that one. I liked having the confirmation. I've never liked failure rolls that were single. Just, boom, oh, you screwed up. really bad. No, you should have a confirmation because it gives the person a better chance at not having a really bad thing happen. The dice really have to be against you, and I like that. He has a fairly short list of broad skills. I believe there's 12 here. Acrobatics, larceny, ranged, build, mechanical stuff. Medicine, science, drive, melee rather, survival, entertaining, leadership, and tame, calm, ride, train, that kind of thing. Nice little section on combat. This uses a hit location system. Again, all based on the D6. So you have head, torso, and then 2 arms and 2 legs. I'm not a huge fan of that, but he narrows it down to some really basic things. I've seen ones that were far too in detail before. This is simple enough that even though I'm not a big fan of that thing, I would not have any problem with this. D6, boom, and 1 is a head, 6 is a torso if you're broad range. I kind of like the top and bottom. I thought that was kind of interesting. Then we have combat action, things like movements and damage from weapons and things like that. You have maneuvers like blocking, distracting, dodging, ambushes, things like that. You have weapon attributes. You have different situations: bleeding, cover, pain, prone. Basic things that you use in a combat situation. The gear section is well done, and again, lots of solid random charts. Then we have environmental, living in the wastelands, missions, preparations. Then you have things like bases. If your characters have a base or build a base, they launch their adventures from. Areas and encounters, the kinds of places you're going to be visiting, like rural areas, rural encounters, urban areas, urban encounters. Very basic list, breaking it into 2 broad categories. Then different kinds of charts for area loot, and these charts are good. Different types of settlements, and different types of factions. So that, for example, you could have bandits hideouts, you could have guerrilla camp, a hippie commune, a punk squad, Nazi stronghold, white supremacists. I would just call them white supremacists. I mean, a broader term, but that's me. Then we have a bunch of information on the scenarios themselves. So you have the alien invasion, which is a dynamic type of an event because the aliens are fairly likely still there, unless the aliens fail on some level. They've broken the world, but they don't succeed, or at least not succeed as well as they thought. That would work as well. Asteroid impact, cosmic Armageddon, end times, classic Christian stuff, or it could be some other completely other end times from a different Ragnarok. Savage World did that. Was it Day After Ragnarok? Very good supplement. But that's the kind of thing like you could do here. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do a Judeo-Christian vibe. You could do something else as well. You could really reach Mayan. Here you go, if you like the Mayan thing. Dystopian megacity. There's your Judge Dredd. Environmental collapse. We push the envelope a little bit too far, and nature decides it's just going to wipe the slate clean. Humans are not needed. And it could be just really passive or something active, like, was it the movie with the plants that started killing people? Hopingly less silly than that, but you get the point. It could be nature goes wild. There's a lot of the 1970s films that dealt with that, where nature was going wild and taking revenge upon humanity. Global pandemics, is it Mr. Trips or Dr. Trips from Stephen King? You get the idea. Killer flus or something, some version of that. Mutagenic outbreak. Here you go. One of my favorite concepts for the end of the world. Some kind of mutagenic event takes place, and people and animals begin to change, or as they refer to here in this game, they turn. I like that. Nuclear winter. That's a classic. Peak oil. We run out of fossil fuels. Though we run out of oil. We have enough coal to last for a very long time. But without oil, our society as we know it would have a major blow to it. Coal is good, but coal can't do everything that liquid fossil fuels can. Robotic rebellion. So you're going to be a little near future. The robots decide that they don't need humans and get rid of them. Solar flare. This is a good one because you can set it at any time period, and solar flares can have from minor short duration events to big huge. It could be a solar flare that gets close enough that it's like licking Venus. So it's it's really powerful, and it's just completely obliterating our ability to defend from cosmic radiation, at least for a short period of time. And so you could have some mutagenic things. You can have just like a whole side of the planet could be brazed clear, that kind of thing. So you could do a lot of things from low-level disruption all the way up to some really powerful events. And Undead Rising. Classic. It's the zombie apocalypse, folks. Section on extras. Monster manual here. Aliens, animals, humans, robots, supernaturals, turned animals, and zombies, and categories of each one. So it gives you a nice sample, and because it gives you multiple examples of, like for animals, it would be not all that difficult to use those as templates to create your own to fill in gaps that you think need to be filled in. Again, a section on loot, which has got great stuff, a master gear list, a single-page character sheet, a team sheet, a team stats, some nice maps of United States, and then a handy index. And any game that includes a table of contents and an index gets thumbs up to me. I like the way this is presented. It is simple. This is not going to take long to figure out how to play. You're using the most ubiquitous form of dice in the universe, the D6, which I approve of. It makes the entry level very welcoming. Now, one of the only critiques, and in fact, I already told Jordan about this particular critique because he asked me, like, did I have any initial thoughts? In the symbols, terms, and abbreviations section, which is like the first real meat of the game. It's on on page 7. In the description of the different terms, he uses abbreviations that have not been explained necessarily while discussing other terms. Now, for lots of us, like ATK, that's an attack. Anyone that's been gaming for a while is going to go, oh, ATK, that's an attack. DEF, defense, yeah, not a problem. But if this is supposed to be an entry-level game, I think this kind of density, this jargon density, is going to be a little off-putting. Now, I realize you want to keep the page count down, you want to keep it clean. I respect that. But I think using full descriptions within this particular section would have made the things overall more approachable. I like the layout here. It has a wonderful vibe of Aftermath or Morrow Project. It looks like something that could have been laid out for real, like on paper, like laid out from a typewriter and stuff. So good use of font. And it has that old school 80s look to it, which I think made me smile when I opened the PDF. Good use of artwork from some public domain stuff, but he also has some things in there that were done for the game itself, and they're well done. The gear lists have some very simple images, but they get the points across, which is what you need in gear. But of course, a lot of things, since this is going to be near future for the most part, a lot of these items you say a hay fork. You know what a hay fork is, a pitchfork. You know what a machete looks like. You know what a spear looks like. So you're not going to need a lot of overly deep description. And in some of these things, you can look at my DeviantArt page and look at what post-apocalyptic weapons look like in color, because I make them as a hobby. A lot of the things in here are derived from others. So you take your for example, you want to know what your athletics is, it's going to be climbing and swimming, and then you figure out the averages of certain your traits, like your brains or something else, to give you another derived stat. So again, it's all built up on each other, and the progression is very simple and logical. There is nothing in here that is going to overwhelm anybody, I don't think, at all. He gives a sample character, which I also really appreciate. Having sample characters is always important, I think, to help somebody walk through. So overall, if this is the first thing that Jordan has ever produced, I'm not sure. I haven't corresponded with him deeply. Then he's done an excellent job. I've seen 4 sale items that were not this well edited. I don't think I saw a spelling error or a faulty sentence anywhere in this entire publication. So if he didn't have an editor, he did a heck of an editing job. And it's difficult to edit your own stuff because sometimes you make a mistake. You did it once and you don't see it when you look at it the second or third time. Having an editor is a blessing. So if he did have one, the person did a good job. Slight other critique. Again, I think I would have used some, like, instead of saying Nazi, I would have said white supremacist. He talks about hookers in here, and the inference is hookers are always women. I would have preferred sex worker and have that be a generic term, because that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just women. People have been trading sex for food and safety for as long as there have been humans, and they aren't always women. But that is of a common cultural vibe as well, so I don't really fault Jordan for that. But I think that he might have been able to step back and make it a little more gender neutral. Overall, this is a solid system. It's well presented, and you can go and get a copy for yourself and look at it. And I recommend you do that, because this is the kind of thing that it's going to be approachable by those that prefer a kind of a medium crunch, and those that also are really appreciate more of a rules light system. This is going to appeal to, I think, both of those groups. If people who are really into the heavy stuff may find this a little light, but there are games out there for them. And anybody in any role-playing system that you're running post-apocalyptic stuff is going to be able to use this for the charts. The charts are awesome. I will admit I have an affection for random charts, but even if I dial back my personal appreciation of them, I still think they're highly useful. And so that alone is a good reason to go take a look at it if you are into the post-apocalyptic genre. So there you go, folks. Go take a look at this game. It's worth your time. Excellent job. And again, if this is Jordan's first game he's ever written, I'm really looking forward to what he does in the future.